From Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak, this is the Automotive ADHD Show. All right, here we are, rocking it for another great edition of the Automotive ADHD Show. My name is Matt West, here to talk to you about cars. That, of course, if you're familiar with this show, you know that's what this is about. I mean, it's also in the name, but, you know, it is what it is. Now, we have had another snowy week here in Colorado, and I gotta say, I always enjoy the snow. Maybe I'm weird again. I find driving in the snow to be fun, and it can sometimes be challenging. Now, that said, you know, I've got a fun show in the works. I mean, especially following some kind of serious talk the past couple weeks about tires, the I-95 incident in Virginia, winter preparedness. I got just some fun, lighthearted stuff this week. I mean, so Dodge, for instance, is planning to replace the Hemi. They haven't said with what yet, but a good indication is it could be a straight six. Yeah, and it's been a while since Chrysler, Mopar, Dodge, whatever. They call themselves Stellantis now. It's been a while since they've had a straight six. They have had them in the past. Also, EVs haven't beat us yet. There's a new study out that has some really interesting information, and sure, you know, push comes to shove, people still like gas cars. That's good stuff. I'll tell you about that. Also, gonna do some talk about the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. That counts as a car, right? I mean, it's a giant sausage with wheels, but it has wheels, and cars also have wheels. So, it shares some interesting parts with some other cars like the Acura NSX, perhaps the Corvette. I don't know. We'll get into that. But before we do, I wanted to mention this. I have failed as a gearhead. Yeah, one sacred task that all auto enthusiasts have is passing this degenerate, expensive hobby on to the next generation. We do this, you know, by imparting our love of cars onto susceptible children. And I had a fantastic, spectacular blunder yesterday. So I was getting ready to visit Mr. OBD1 Kenobi, Brian. He was a guest on last week's show. I was going to his shop, going to go visit him. And I was getting into the $800 Stroker Jeep, and as I was getting into it in my driveway, there's a family that walks. They go and walk out around the neighborhood. They have their young kids, two young boys. And they walk by my house, and when the kids go by, sometimes I've got the garage door and I'm working on cars and stuff. And they like to call my house the race car house. They're like, look, it's the race car house, which is fine and all, and it's good, you know. And they seem to enjoy the cars, though they really should raise their standards from my fleet of cars. Just throwing that out there. But the thing is, so I was getting into the Jeep, and the kids stop walking to look at it and watch it start. And one of the youngest kid there, motions to me after I had started it. They're like, "Whoa, it started! It's loud. It's got a glass pack, muffler in it. Not much else. It's a straight six. It's a 4.6 liter straight six. Talking about straight sixes, right? But what he does is I'm pulling out of the driveway. He motions to me to do the trucker horn thing. He pulls his hand like up and down, the trucker horn thing. He does that. And I reach for the horn. Obviously, I want to appease the kids' needs of hearing the horn. And then I remember the Jeep doesn't have a horn. Sadly, it hasn't had one for years. It's just been absent from in there. It's been missing. I have never really. It's an off-roader. It was $800. I've never really cared to put another horn in it. And anyway, so I was like, oh no, the kid didn't. He wants the horn. I can't honk the horn. So I just kind of smile and wave to him awkwardly as I back the Jeep out. And he motions to me to do the horn thing again. He's like, do it again. And he's like thinking I didn't see it. And I just kind of have to wave to him. I blip the throttle. I try to rev it. No, he's not satisfied. He wants the horn. And all I could do is pull out of the driveway and pass him on as he looked at me with this soul-crushing look of disappointment. And I have absolutely failed. That kid may never be the same. He may grow up to hate cars, and I have ruined this child. I've failed as an auto enthusiast to impart this degenerate passion on. And I mean, worse yet, this kid might grow up to buy a Tesla when he's older, all because I failed him. So yeah, I have that unfortunate news to present to you, but it is what it is. We can't make everyone happy, sadly enough. So it is what it is. But hey, on the topic of on the topic of straight sixes, I was mentioning the $800 stroker Jeep. It's got a 4.6 liter straight six. That's kind of like a junkyard stroker build. I did it on the cheap for about $1,200, and I did a whole show on stroker motors. If you're interested in knowing a little bit more about what that is, why it's cool, go way back. I want to say it was episode like two or four, one of those way back in your podcast feed. Go check that out. It's pretty good stuff, really informational. And Jeep, for instance, has used the straight six engine for decades until about 2007. The 2006 model year was the last year to use that, and they haven't had one for a while now. But that soon could change because Jeep's parent company, Stellantis, which also owns Dodge, Chrysler, Fiat, among other things, and for a long time, they've had talks about a straight six. There have been rumors. Now, I'm always hesitant to talk about rumors, especially early on. It's never worth talking about like way far out. It really isn't. And, though I do think there comes to be a time when enough stuff comes out, enough things are verified that it's not just a rumor at this point. And that's what's happened here in the form of a straight six engine that they didn't announce, but one of the Stellantis website had on it inadvertently. Apparently, it was maybe a mistake on their web development team. It listed all the engines that they make and where they're made. And Stellantis manufactures its V8 engines in Mexico, and that includes the Hemi V8s, the Hellcat V8s, all of those. They manufacture those at one of their plants in Mexico. And it listed also another engine designated as a 3-liter straight six. And everyone looked at that. People on forums were watching this like, that's weird. They don't have a 3-liter straight six. Well, there have been talks of that for a while. And, there have been little leaks here and there. This is a big thing there that recently, I think, helps substantiate this a little bit. And when you think about it, even, barring from rumors, because no one really likes rumors, when you think about it, a straight six is a really good platform to have, especially when you're trying to make a lot of torque. You're trying to make it cheap because, straight sixes are simple to make. They have one cylinder head instead of two. On a V6, you got two cylinder heads, one for each bank, two different separate valve trains. Straight six, you only have one. It's easier to service. All the spark plugs and everything are there. It's easier to manufacture. And it has some distinct performance benefits, too, because when you think about it, everybody's favorite JDM icons, the Supra, the Skyline GTR, those cars famously use straight sixes. I find it interesting, too. Everyone gives V6s a lot of crap. But straight sixes, whoa, no, those are cool instead. I mean, at the end of the day, they have the same displacement. They're going to make about the same amount of power. Not too big of a difference. But one thing that is really cool about V6s is their smoothness because of the layout, because of how a straight six is configured. You have your crankshaft, you got your pistons. Basically, and to put it simply, if a piston goes up, another one goes down equally, meaning straight sixes are very balanced and they're very smooth, and they don't need extra complexities like V6s need. A lot of V6s, in order to be smooth, use balance shafts and all sorts of stuff to try to get out vibration that's inherent in the platform. Well, straight sixes don't have that problem. That's also why they've been a favorite of European luxury cars. BMWs have famously used straight sixes, a lot of them. And a lot of Mercedes platforms have been straight sixes over the years. They're really, really smooth. They come up to RPM very well. They have a good kind of mid-range, really good, I would say, amount of torque as well for what they are. And again, my Jeep's a great example of that. I'm pushing about 300 pound-feet of torque from a 6-cylinder. That's like almost V8 numbers, and it's all in that Jeep, at least with the cam I have, it's all in the low RPM range. So, and Stellantis could very well turn this. I don't like calling them Stellantis still. I mean, I still call them FCA, Fiat Chrysler. I mean, there's still some people who call them Daimler Chrysler, which okay, maybe that's a bit much. But, Stellantis could be very well making the American 2JZ for all we know. And that wouldn't be unheard of because Ford actually makes a straight six even now, and we just don't have it here in the American market. And that is a series of engines in Australia known as the Barra motor series of engines. Barra is what they call it. And, and that's favored heavily by enthusiasts there. And people there bolt big turbos on these things, and they're making 4-digit horsepower on like stock parts. I mean, The Ford Barra engine there is really, really well loved. So who's to say Stellantis can't make a straight six? And when you think about what vehicles they have to put them in, Dodge Rams, Jeeps, stuff like that, those are already front engine, rear wheel drive. One thing the straight six is not very good at is packaging, because if you have a transverse setup, a front wheel drive car, you're not really getting much of a straight six in there. Volvo did it with the T6 engine, the T6 white block. But the fact is you really have to cram that in there because you got this long engine sideways. Now, when you have it mounted in a front engine rear drive configuration, there's nothing wrong with that. And they're so easy to work on. Gosh, straight sixes are good platforms. Some things that, there's not all benefits. Sometimes at really high RPMs, you have this really long crankshaft compared to a V6 or a V8. You got this really long crankshaft, and that can develop vibrations at high RPMs. If it's not perfectly balanced, that can damage it. Camshafts can also warp, and you get weird stuff that happens. So that's one reason why you don't have any straight 8 engines, which those existed like back in the 30s. And again, there's a good reason we really don't use those in cars at the very least. So, and it's also interesting to point out that executives at Dodge have said the V8's days are numbered. Well, they didn't say. They said the Hemi's days are numbered. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think this straight six platform that has been kind of leaked as well through Stellantis' website. There's been leaks as well on like dealer order forms. There's enough things to say that there's a good chance this is actually going to happen. It's made it far enough. Will we see it in the next year? Perhaps. When will we see it in a car? Probably not until the 2024 model year would be my prediction. But I also don't think this is truly going to replace the Hemi V8. I mean, Dodge wants to do some electric stuff. They want to do their e-muscle stuff, which is fine and all. But there's a group of people who just want a big, gigantic muscle car with a big, gigantic V8 with a supercharger. And you're not going to convince that group of people, well, we discontinued the V8, but we got this Turbo 6. Which it's worth noting that the drawings and everything, there was even a patent that was issued as well to Stellantis about this straight six. It does show it with the turbocharger. Will they all have turbos? Who knows? But that said, you're not going to convince these muscle car people to, you're not going to convince them to have a straight six, a turbo six, when they're there for a big, choppy V8. I like turbo straight sixes. I've always been a fan of the import cars. Again, the Supra famously used one of those. The 2JZ. Everyone loves the 2JZ. So, but I think it'll be interesting. I think especially if this platform makes it into Jeeps, that'll be cool. That'll be kind of a throwback to the old days of Jeeps. I mean, Jeep used the straight six as kind of a byproduct of when they were owned by American Motors, and they used them for, like 30 years. It was the same engine too, pretty much the same engine. American Motors is not known for changing up their formula very often, though they made reliable-ish drivetrains. I also own a American Motors Hornet. An AMC Hornet uses basically, again, the same engine, though that one's in 3.8 liters, but whatever. Yeah, whatever. I mean, you know what? American Motors, AMC, that's a company I wish would come back. Not because they would make good cars, but just because they were weird. That's a whole nother topic, though. The history of that. They're one of my favorite car companies. That's for a different show. But coming up in just a minute, I'm going to be talking about the some EV statistics and why people maybe actually aren't as ready to buy EVs as car companies would lead you to believe. There's some really interesting stuff. There's a new study out. I'll tell you about it in just a minute.
Did you know there's a rare but serious condition affecting 1 out of every million? Most are born with it, and despite decades of research, doctors struggle to find a cure. The truth is, thousands of people simply don't know what cars are. For those affected, things are grim, but recent developments show promising success. New clinical trials using breakthrough audio technology have shown a 69% improvement in patients with the most severe symptoms. Treatments vary, but one day we may see a cure. More information is available at throttlewarrior.com.
we go. That's Jesse and his supercharged AP1 S2000 sounding fantastic. The car's now turbocharged. There was a video from when he had the supercharger on it. Gotta love the sound of those high revving 4 cylinders and boost. That said, if you want to send your car sounds into the show, I do play car sounds on the show. It's always a lot of fun, and I'm going to be doing some giveaways here really soon. I've been talking about it for a few weeks, I know, but I have been organizing some stuff that I might be ready to debut for next week's show that I can give away to people who send their car sounds in. So if you want to get in on that early, be sure to send some sound of your car doing something cool. It doesn't have to be ridiculous. Don't have to do anything insane to do it. Just send it into the Automotive ADHD Facebook page. Go check that out. While you're there, be sure to give that page a like as well. And I want to thank a bunch of people as well who liked it recently in the past week. Jamie Hernandez, Aaron Din, Matt Barry, and a bunch of others. So you got to go check it out. Facebook.com/Automotive ADHD. Now, I got a quick piece of news right here. That maybe is sad news. So there is a massive auto enthusiast publication called Drive Tribe. And they're closing up shop at the end of this month. And I mean, they're huge. Millions of people use the platform. But the problem is, and it's really, and some of the background here, before I get into the problem, or the background rather, is it was founded around 2016 by the former Top Gear hosts, everyone's favorite, Jeremy Clarkson, Richard Hammond, James May, or as they call them in the UK, presenters. It's a bit presumptuous. But anyway, it was founded as sort of this thing that could be that auto enthusiasts could post their own editorial stuff, columns, articles, and it's a neat concept. Think of it kind of like YouTube, but for car stuff and also written articles and again, columns and things like that. And, and it spawned some really cool stuff. And in fact, it even spearheaded some people's careers in automotive journalism, which is really cool to see. And it's also a neat avenue for people like me who can't shut up about cars. So, and what was really cool about the platform is they had editors who would curate the content. So actual people, instead of like YouTube, which uses a computer algorithm to promote stuff, they would have actual people sift through the stuff and, post on the front page, curate that, and post things that are, that other people made that are really interesting. And that was cool because that, meant that if you posted stuff there, it didn't just get swallowed up into the faceless abyss of the YouTube algorithm, for instance. And I enjoy writing at times as well myself. I've posted a handful of things there. One of the coolest things was I did an op-ed about back when they announced the Mark V Supra, which we now know is a BMW, and that's okay, though. I wrote an op-ed about why it's actually a great car and why everyone's wrong for hating it and saying it's crap because it's a BMW. That's not, in my opinion, that's still not true. And the crazy thing is it got like 50,000 views in 2 days. And that was the cool thing about Drive Tribe. If you posted something good chance is the curators would actually see it and bump it up to the front page. So, and it's sad to say that is going away now. And they cited economic factors, business, running, all these servers and stuff during the pandemic, especially. So there's a number of reasons, not because people weren't using it. Plenty of people are using it, but just because you got a lot of people using it doesn't always mean you can always sell enough ads to keep the lights on and get enough sponsorships to keep things going. And, they had an initial amount of money to start with, again, funded by Hammond, Clarkson, and May. And that money ran dry very quick, though. It's turns out it's very expensive to run a huge social media platform like that. And which, again, it's unfortunate. They said it's just business. This is how things go. And that's too bad because there's not really another platform like it to my knowledge. Maybe if you know, you can let me know as well. And I'll share that here on the show. Let me know on the Automotive ADHD Facebook page. Now, Jalopnik, for a period of time, had perhaps the closest thing. They had a form called Opposite Lock, which was sort of a user kind of generated thing. People wrote their own stuff to put on there, which was cool. But that met an untimely demise last year. So yeah, it looks like, there's a demand for this, but it's very hard to make it profitable, which that's a tough part of being in business. Like, yeah, people love this. They're using it, but we have a hard time making money with it, for instance. So even though people love it, doesn't mean it keeps the lights on. it is what it is. Rest in peace, Drive Tribe. I will keep the torch burning. How about that? How about this podcast? I will carry that torch of nonsensical automotive things, and we'll do it here. Also, maybe we can do a little more of that on the Facebook page, the Automotive ADHD Facebook page. So anyway, let's not be glum about it. There's many more exciting things to talk about, like, for instance, EVs. Well, it turns out they aren't winning. Yeah. So there's a recent study, and I find it interesting. So it says majority of car buyers say right now, like true actual car buyers, not backseat couch car buyers like I can be sometimes. No, they say that they're still not going to buy EVs. In fact, 69% of them say that they are still going to buy a gasoline or diesel vehicle as their next vehicle purchase. And again, this is a survey of people with actual, cash in hand, true car buyers. And so they only said, by the way, 17% of people are going to buy hybrid electric, and then only 5% of people said they're going to buy plug-in hybrids. As well. And then there's also battery electric vehicles, which comes down to another 5%. So, and that's interesting because the automotive media and a lot of people will tell you, oh man, EVs, it's what's happening now. Everyone's getting EVs. It's really good stuff. But when it comes to actual cash in hand, the numbers say that's not true. And I'm not doing this to bash on EVs at all. This is just a statistic of what's happening now. I mean, as EV technology gets better, I imagine a lot more people are going to be getting on board with it. But, in my analysis, for some of the reasons for this, primarily cost is a number one factor because EVs right now are still very much in the luxury market. There's cheaper ones, like Nissan Leaf and stuff, but primarily EVs are still a luxury car type of item. And so cost, that's a big deal. Also uncertainty. This is a new platform. People are unexperienced with it. It's got, there's questions about the infrastructure. There's uncertainty there. And when it comes to actual money, and especially, coming off the heels with the pandemic and all sorts of economic factors, people hold on to their money a little tighter sometimes. Though, if you look at current car prices, that might be harder to believe. People are paying huge money for some cars. But that said, reliability also comes into question here because, electric powertrains have actually proven to be really reliable and really simple. There's a lot less stuff going on and there's a lot less need for maintenance, but weird, quirky, broken, underdeveloped software that runs these cars is definitely played into some reliability concerns, in my opinion. Charging infrastructure, again, I mean, it's a huge deal. I mean, you can go fill up a tank of gas in your car and do it very quickly. So now the same study also looked into some of these factors about why people are hesitant to buy EVs, and some of them are kind of like what I hit on too. One of the biggest factors in the U.S. is going to be stuff about like lower fuel costs, as opposed to climate change and all that stuff. No, low fuel costs, which I find interesting because a lot of people have broken down, depending on how you drive and where you get your electricity, sometimes in some cases, the electricity can actually cost more or just as much. So I don't know if lower fuel costs is necessarily accurate, but that's neither here nor there. What I find surprising is way down on the list of people's concerns is less maintenance. To me, that would seem like, a better selling factor for EVs. Like there's no oil changes. I mean, like your regular service intervals. I was talking to Brian, OBD1 Kenobi. He works on, Volvos and all their new stuff and some of their EVs. He's like, man, the 20,000 mile service interval is like a cabin air filter change and that's it, So, that as a driver seems really appealing. A lot of people suck at taking care of their cars. Let's be real. And they do. So if you have less things to worry about, I think a lot more people would be interested in that. But according to this study, that's kind of near the bottom of people's lists. So I don't know. It's interesting stuff. And I think, again, money is super important. In a way, people sort of vote with their dollar when it comes to products, and everyone can say at the end of the day, oh, yeah, electric cars are great. I want an electric car. It's good. But when it comes to actually buying one, seeing the numbers, seeing what people with cash in hand are actually doing is really interesting. So anyway, hey, got some other good stuff to hit on here in the next segment of the show. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be talking about the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile, which does count as a car. I know this is a car show, and we're going to talk about a giant sausage with wheels and how it might have some parts compatibility with some surprising stuff. So I'll talk about that in just a minute.
Every day, thousands go without the ability to buy necessary and life-saving parts. Parts like turbos, coilovers, and wheels.
I'm Steve, turbocharged BRZ. It doesn't run because I can play with my connecting rod through the hole in my block.
Project cars sit unfinished, waiting for parts, collecting dust.
My name is Todd, and I bought a rotary.
It's okay, bro. We'll swap it.
But no more. You, yes you, can make a difference. For as little as $5 per month, you can put an end to Project Cars suffering and support your favorite podcast. Patreon.com/Throttle Warrior. Donate now and receive special perks. Sponsored by Autoholics Anonymous and the Speed Council.
Oh yeah, here we are, third half of the show. Can it be the third half? I think it can be the third half. Matt West here to talk to you about cars. I think I cheated a little bit with that car sound. I have a confession. That was my car. Josh Maldonado messaged me on Instagram and talked me into post and to putting that one in the show. And that's what, okay, I was driving the 86 around, my old crusty, rusty Corolla, and ripping it around in some of the snow we had here earlier this week in Colorado. And yeah, okay, fine. It's cheating. It's cheating that I put my own car in. What can you do? What can you do? But hey, if you want to send your car sounds into the show, you gotta do it. Facebook.com/Automotive ADHD. If Facebook isn't necessarily your flavor, you can also email me, Matt@throttlewarrior.com. Love to hear those car sounds. I love putting them here on the show. And it's just a great way to interact with you and have you have cool things on the show. So I absolutely like doing that. So before we talk about some Wienermobile sausage talk, let's I want to hit on this first. Why does Japan get all the cool stuff? Because, you know, they always have, right? Like, you think about like the Skyline GTRs, S14, S15 Sylvia, NSX Type R, you know, just to name a few. The Evo 6, there's many others. There's truly some automotive legends that are forbidden on U.S. shores. And the Japanese, though, they have done it again with another incredibly cool car that we can't get here. And let me give you some hints, right? It's got all-wheel drive. It's got VTEC. A turbo. Yeah, thinking of what you're thinking? See, picturing something? Well, Honda has announced for the 2022 model year, the new Step Wagon. Yes. This is an amusing car. This is, following a long history of performance legends, a new compact van. And think of it like the mini van. Now, this is, I kind of say this in jest, but this is kind of cool because, vans here in the U.S. are very boring, very average. I mean, the Honda Odyssey, what a casual, normal van. I mean, yes, it's a car. Yes, it gets the family around. I know that, but it's boring. It is. There's nothing interesting about it. In Japan, the Japanese market has vans that are really interesting. In fact, they have a huge culture of microvan stuff and people who modify them and do all sorts of weird stuff. And by minivans, these vans are like ultra minivans compared to what we know minivans to be here in the US. And a lot of them fall into the K-car category there, which is a governmental designation for cars of a certain size. They're small cars. They're micro cars, basically. But I mean, think of it cool. Like, think of it as, something that's really cool. What can you get that's fun, small, cheap, reliable, practical? I mean, and has a turbo, has VTEC, has all-wheel drive. Like, there's not much like that here in the US, which is a bummer, especially like, imagine you're in the market for a second fun car. You need a second car, but you need it to be able to haul people around. Yeah, Step Wagon. There you go. It's this weird little boxy thing. It kind of looks, I would almost imagine it looks like the Scion XB from like 10 years ago, but half the size. The XB is a small car. This is even smaller, but it's cool. You get you can carry stuff. It gets 100 million miles per gallon, somewhere around there. What's to not like about the step wagon? And even better, again, it's got all-wheel drive. So if you get stuck, step wagon will be there to help. I mean, come on. What are you doing, step wagon? What are you doing? Oh my God. Was all of that the lead up to a dead meme? I don't know. I genuinely think the step wagon is it's a cool car. Also interesting name. And of course, a bummer that we never get the cool stuff here in the US. Japan keeps it to themselves. I don't know. That's devious of them to do that. But anyway, hey, let's talk about hot dogs. How's that for a segue? Yeah, that was okay. All right, it was one, but I've got I want to hit on some neat stuff about the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile, and I want to give a hat tip to road and track rider Bozy Tatarvik, hopefully pronouncing that name correctly, Bozy. Anyway, for discovering this, and he discovered this mysteriously while browsing the public file for Kraft Foods, the federal public file that's available. For some reason, just browsing through there. Maybe that's what he does in his free time. I don't know. But anyway, this road and track rider found the VINs to all of the Wienermobiles and did some research from there. And from that, he was able to break down the whole supply chain basically for the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile, which is kind of cool. So it turns out that it shares a ton of parts with all sorts of cool cars. So it is based on an Isuzu industrial truck chassis, like the sort of ones that come with just a cab and then there's big frame rails in the back exposed, so that way you as a company put whatever you want on it. But in said chassis is the L96 Chevrolet V8. That is a 6-liter V8. It is basically the iron block version of the LS2, which is found in a lot of Corvettes. And then that is made it up to a 6L90 transmission, which is the transmission from the Cadillac CTS V, so almost 600 horsepower Cadillac. Also the 5th gen Camaro ZL1. How cool is that? Yeah, Camaro's either, you can think of it like this, like either the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile shares parts with the Camaro, or the Camaro shares parts with the Wienermobile, depending on how you want to say that. It's got a little bit of a different context. Also, interesting thing, they found that the paint colors are the same as those found on late 1970s Datsun products. Because reasons, I guess. That's just the perfect hot dog color. I don't know. Even stranger, though, is the wheel bearings are shared with the Acura NSX. What? Yeah. And now in the NSX, these bearings are used as differential bearings inside the differential. In the Wienermobile, they're used as part of the whole setup for the wheel bearings, which is interesting. Those bearings can also be found, or rather another part of the wheel bearing assembly can be found on the Mercedes G63. So, yeah, I mean, look, if you ever end up purchasing a Oscar Mayer Wienermobile secondhand, it's a lot of stuff to keep track of. When you go to the parts store and they're like, what kind of car do you have? Well, it's hard to explain, right? Especially if you've got any sort of weird car, it's hard to explain. Imagine how hard that would be to explain if you had the Wienermobile. Well, I need parts for an NSX for the wheel bearings, and I need a Camaro transmission, and I need a Mercedes, Yeah, good luck. Good luck keeping up with all of that stuff. So, hey, there you go. Now you know. Now you really know what is behind the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. Those are such strange things, but everyone recognizes them. They're a brilliant piece of brand and marketing, and they've existed for, decades. They've been building those things for forever. So really cool stuff right there. And now, hey, I want to thank you, by the way, for listening. Can you believe it? Half an hour now on the show. That is, regrettably, that's half an hour you're not going to get back. I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do about that, but hopefully it was worth it. And if it was, remember to subscribe to this podcast wherever fine podcasts, and this one, are downloaded. Oh yeah, and I mentioned this last week too, but you can give this podcast a rating if you are a Spotify listener. I know from looking at my analytics, about 50% of people are listening on Spotify. So if that is you, go into the app. You can add ratings now. It's a brand new feature. Give it a 6 or 7 star rating if you would, please. That's It's presumptuous of me to ask that. It only goes up to 5. But I don't know. We might have to ask Spotify to change that. So all good stuff right there. And be sure as well to check out the Automotive ADHD Facebook page. Send your car sounds in. I like to play them on the show. And I'm going to be doing some giveaways soon for people who have sent their car sounds in. So you definitely want to get on that. Now, I will see you next week, same time, same place, when I get in a fist fight with Carol Shelby. See you then.